This is All Things Considered from NPR News. I'm Ari Shapiro.
And I'm Mary Louise Kelly. Community bail funds. They are a small part of bail reform, using donations from the public to get people out of jail. Advocates say the funds are an act of solidarity from community members. As NPR's Meg Anderson reports, these funds are under scrutiny from conservative lawmakers.
3 years ago, Jessica was struggling with drug addiction and homelessness.
I was stranded in Atlanta, and I got in some trouble.
We're not using her last name because she's worried about the stigma of a criminal record. She was charged with marijuana possession, identity fraud, and forgery. Her bail was set at more than $6,000.
At that point in my life, I had already kind of burned a lot of bridges.
She couldn't pay, so she had 3 paths ahead of her. The first, stay in jail. The second, use a commercial bail bond company. They pay bail in exchange for a non-refundable fee, often 10% of the full bail amount. The third, use a community bail fund. These groups pay bail for free for people who can't. 2 months after Jessica was sent to jail, that is how she got out and started to turn her life around. She now works for a drug treatment program. That last path, the community bail fund, is becoming more common across the country.
Following the 2020 protests, there was a lot of momentum around charitable bail payments to support people who were protesting police brutality, police violence.
Erin George is the National Policy Director of the Bail Project, a bail fund that's released more than 30,000 people nationwide, including Jessica. In 2015, there were only about a dozen of these types of funds across the country. After 2020, there were more than 100. That's according to the National Bail Fund Network. And in the last 5 years, lawmakers in more than a dozen states and Congress have introduced bills to regulate these funds. Things like adding more reporting requirements, saying they can only bail out a few people each year, or that they can't bail out anyone charged with a violent crime. At least 4 states have passed such laws. The latest was just last month in Texas.
I think there should be regulation if you're going to operate in the criminal justice system. I don't really think it's that onerous.
Jeff Clayton leads the American Bail Coalition, which represents commercial bail bond companies. Supporters of these bills often say they're concerned with public safety. And Clayton pointed to high-profile cases where someone a bail fund released then committed a violent crime. But a 2024 study from the Brennan Center for Justice didn't find a link between bail reform and higher crime. Still, Clayton says,
You do it charitable, you do it for profit, you still need to have a bail license in order to do that. And regulatory oversight where they can prohibit you from acting as a bondsman if there's abuses or for some reason you're stealing funds.
Clayton highlighted one criminal case in New York where the head of a mutual aid group was indicted for allegedly using bail money for personal expenses. But many bail funds are small and run by volunteers. Advocates say adding more requirements might make it too hard to do that work. They also say these restrictions are not about making anyone safer. Erin George of the Bail Project says the people they've helped release show up for more than 90% of their court dates. So it isn't about public safety. It's about money, she says.
It makes a data-driven, evidence-based case that we should really be looking at our cash bail systems and laws. And that cuts at the financial bottom line of commercial bail bonds companies.
And some bail funds are thinking more broadly about the system as a whole. The Minnesota Freedom Fund, for instance, received an influx of millions of dollars during the 2020 protests against police brutality. In May, the group announced it's pivoting away from paying bail to instead advocate for an end to cash bail altogether. Meg Anderson, NPR News.